Mr. Ashish Chauhan, CEO, Bombay Stock Exchange, Mr. Rashesh Shah, Chairman, Edelweiss Group, distinguished members of the SME fraternity, at the outset, a very warm greeting comes to you from me, Vivek Law, on the second Edelweiss BSE International Day for SMEs. As you're aware, the UN General Assembly declared 27th June as the International Day for SMEs. And that's something because that shows the kind of importance the global world, not just here in India, but the global world gives to the entire SME space. Having seen the SME universe, seen some of those stories quite closely over my 25 years as a journalist, there is no doubt in anyone's mind that SMEs really are the backbone of the Indian economy. From time to time, concerns, hurdles, disruptions keep happening, but somehow the other, in fact, just day before, there was a new survey and a report put out by a credit rating agency which said that while the larger corporates are struggling with NPAs, the NPA situation across SMEs, and they surveyed about 350 SMEs, and they said that it's stable there. And they also said that the revenue growth for this sample of companies, and almost about 350 odd companies, was about 27%. And the net profit had trebled in 1 year. So this tells you the spirit with which SMEs function. We've had demonetization, we had GST, and of course, while we've all as commentators talked about the disruptions they caused, but many of the SMEs have taken a very short time and already bounced back. So that's really the spirit and the essence of the Indian SME sector. So it's a great day to celebrate your success. We have a lot lined up today. We will have eminent speakers sharing their thoughts. We will have some eminent speakers on a panel that I will moderate shortly to talk about what is the road ahead, what are the things that SMEs can do further. So you have on the one hand a problem with the public sector banking space, which have been big lenders to the SME space, but their position or their space has been taken very significantly by the hyper growth of the NBFC sector. So a large number of NBFCs, some extremely capable, have emerged who are providing innovative ways to give credit to the SME space. On the other hand, there is the whole technology disruption that is taking place. There are newer technologies coming in. Are SMEs able to stand up and get themselves acquainted with these technologies and then adopt them? And then, of course, there is the whole listing space. There are already 250 companies that have got listed here on the Bombay Stock Exchange, on the listing, the SME platform. And I'm sure that in the months and years ahead, there'll be lots more that will also be able to go public and raise funds. So lots to talk about. I wish you all the very best and hope to see you soon on the panel and take some of your questions as well. But before we start the proceedings, would request all of you to stand for the national anthem.
Jana Mana Adhinayak Jaya He Bharat Bhagya Vidhata Punjab Sindh Gujarat Maratha Dravida Utkala Vanga Vindhya Himachala Yamuna Ganga Uchala Jaladhi Taranga Tava Shubha Name Jage Tava Shubha Ashish Mange Gahe Tava Jaya Gatha Jana Gana Mangala Dayak Jaya He Bharat Bhagya Vidhata Jaya He Jaya He Jaya He Jaya 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 He.
I would now like to request Shri Ashish Kumar Chauhan, MD and CEO of BSE Limited, and Shri Rashesh Shah, Chairman and CEO Edelweiss Group, to please come light the lamp. I would now request Shri Ashish Kumar and Shri Rashesh to please come and ring this, do the ringing of the bell ceremony. Now can I request Shri Ashish Kumar to come give the welcome address, please?
Shri Rashesh Shah, Chairman and CEO, Edelweiss Group. Shri Vivek Law, Founder, CEO, and Editor-in-Chief, Money Mile. My colleagues from the industry, the listed company CEOs, friends, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure and honor to be in front of you. BSE story is for last 143 years. In fact, we'll be celebrating our 143rd year on 9th July. We have more than 5,000 companies listed. It's the largest in the world. We are also the fastest exchange in the world with 6 microseconds response time. In 1 second, there are 1 million microseconds. We give you a response when you place an order. Of course, your computers place orders, and we give you a response at 150,000th of a second. That's the claim we make, but actually we gave a response time of around 2 microseconds. That's half a millionth of a second. It's very, very fast. It's highly high-tech. This hall where you are sitting now used to be the trading hall of BSE, where people used to trade using hand signals. And then in 95, BSE became automated, so we converted it into a trading hall later on. And now we sort of do this kind of events here. In terms of the SMEs, as everyone of us know, SMEs provide the largest amount of jobs in any economy. At the same time, they are the most neglected sector in terms of funding because they are small. They need to go to the banking system. Banking system doesn't trust them. They are also a little more risky than the larger companies. Still, the IBBI came. The small companies had no recourse, even if the large companies defaulted on their payments. They had to keep on extending more and more credit. And today, with IBBI, I think yeoman's service has been done to SME sector that any operating creditor of more than 1 lakh rupees can actually go to the NCLT and ensure that his money is paid or the company is declared bankrupt. And that, of course, many industry associations don't like it, the large ones, and they are trying to remove that. But for me, it's a very good protection for the SME sector that even for 1 lakh rupees of default by a large company, you are able to make it basically go and plead for the payments. And that's why I think over the next few years, the working capital cycles will actually become shorter going forward in Indian economy. One of the larger reasons of the working capital cycles being so large that the large companies were actually running on negative working capital funded by the small companies. Having said that, the SME sector also had a serious issue of reputation in the stock markets. In early 90s, a lot of young small companies came to Indian markets, raised funds and ran away. They are now known famously as vanishing companies, and the exchanges were left holding the baby. Investors were basically blaming the exchanges for allowing these companies to come into the market. It always happens that whenever an investor makes money in Indian stock markets, it's his brilliance which makes money. But when it loses money, then it is about the stock exchange creating problems for themselves, which is what we are used to doing. And finally, what happened as a blunt instrument, the exchanges ensured that the small companies don't come to the market at all. So from 1990s to 2010, the stock markets stopped funding the small companies. And if we had not funded small companies like Infosys, then you wouldn't have seen the IT revolution. But after that, we stopped funding those companies. And that was a sort of an issue with the government. And exchanges were sort of telling the governments that we have this issue of reputation, that our reputation gets tarnished when the small companies, even 1, 2, or 10 of them, taking small amounts run away. We have a problem and we don't want to have them. And after long negotiations, several committees, in 2010, government set up another committee. It came out with its report. And finally, in 2012, March, we started listing the first SME company in a separate segment. And we basically had to take some protective measures. So we ended up telling the regulator that we don't want small investors in this market, because if they lose money, then you come after us. Instead, allow large investors to come in. And they are supposed to be wise, they are supposed to study things, and then only invest, so you don't require so much protection. So finally, after several negotiations, minimum 1 lakh rupees of lot size was kept, while as in the normal market, you can even buy one share of, say, 50 paisa or 1 rupee, whereas here, you have to buy 1 lakh rupee minimum and multiples thereof. So that was one sort of negotiation framework that came about. The other part was that because there are going to be very few investors in this market, only 50 minimum, whereas in the main board you require 1,000. And so we thought you need to have market making, which is required. Of course, regulator told us that you need to have market makers. We opposed, but finally the market making was introduced, and it has successfully worked for more than 250 companies. Today, BSE, after almost 6 years, BSE is listed 250 companies, which for me is a proof of concept. Many people think it's the most successful SME platform in the world today. World Bank, or even Milken Conference, wherever you go, BSE SME is touted as the most successful SME experiment in the world. We have been able to raise for these 250 companies around 2,400 crore rupees. Those companies, when they list, average market capitalization is around 30 crores. They raise around 7.5, 8 crores, which is called really tiny or micro companies from the world standards, but from the Indian standards, we call them SMEs. And today, their market capitalization is around 20,000 crores, about 20,000 crores. So effectively, the governments can continue to give lots and lots of subsidies. All the state governments keep on giving a lot of subsidies to SMEs. They don't come back. Nobody knows what is happening. But when it comes to BSE SME, we create wealth. And we ensure that the compliance is maintained. Of course, it's a risk instrument people are investing in. And that is where some companies may not do so well. But overall, the experience of entrepreneurs has been phenomenal. We have some entrepreneurs who will talk today. The experience of the investing public has been exceedingly good. We have now literally got a set of investors who invest only in SME companies of BSE. And BSE has ensured that all the bogus practices of doing multiple times, 100 times subscriptions and all those stuff does not happen on BSE, because it serves no purpose except getting some brownie points or getting things in newspapers. But otherwise, if a company wants 10 crores, why would you want 1,000 crores and then give back 990 and also pay money for doing all that stuff? And that's where BSE has quietly developed this franchise. We think this is an early time. 250 companies is basically a very, very small number. We think over next 10 to 20 years, we'll have 100,000 companies listing on BSE SME platform. And the new India, the new world, is basically about the non-linearity. Earlier, if you had to put in, if you had to make $1 billion, you had to put in $1 billion. Today, you put in 100,000 rupees and you may get $1 billion. And that is non-linear returns that is going to come because the technology is changing at a pace that is phenomenal. And the newer and newer companies, not only in India, internationally they are coming. And that is where we think the new companies, the new India is in SME. Many of them will grow up. So we also gave them a framework to graduate into the main board. We are the only exchange in India which allows a smooth graduation. Many exchanges may go out end up marketing and show their sort of bigness. But when a company gets listed, and when they want to go to main board today, I am getting requests from the SME companies from other exchanges to list on my main board. Because they have gone there, got impressed, but finally they are not allowed to go to the main board. Because it's like in Bombay colleges, in Bombay schools, that up to class 10 only you have the schools. 11, 12 you have to go to other places. And that is what many exchanges are doing. In our school, you go up to class 12, right? You go to graduate stuff. And that is what the difference between BSE and other exchanges, that we nurture the companies. It's a tradition here. Over 143 years, we have helped India create $2.5 trillion of wealth. And imagine, 143 years back, even now, it is amusing to think a person sitting in Srinagar or even in Minnesota is putting money in Indian company which is actually having a factory in Salem. Person is never going to go there, never going to visit the premises or factories, and still he or she has a complete comfort that when you when you trade on BSE, when you put your money in BSE SME or BSE main board company, almost always your money will be used properly. And in case there is a profit, it will be shared with you. Today, India is ranked around 7th in the world in terms of the corporate governance, largely because of the way Indian markets are structured. And for me, it's a delight to get entrepreneurs coming, listing. We have entrepreneurs of various types. Doctors are now listing their companies. You would never have thought doctors listing companies. Biomass companies are coming and listing. That is new India. Of course, we have robotics companies also listing. We have software companies listing. But restaurant chains, seed companies, seed manufacturing for agriculture, we have unbelievably different characteristics of the companies. Even market research companies are listed on BSE SME. XBRL company now, Mr. Swaminathan is going to talk about it, but they actually provide XBRL framework to rest of the world. XBRL is basically a framework in which you exchange data in international markets. And so we have some amusing and amazing companies. And today, I tell, we also have set up an incubator on 18th floor of BSE. If you get a chance today, you might like to visit. We have funded around 160 companies in last 3 years. Around 60 have gone out with a funding of more than $60–70 million. 60 have sort of gone down, and around 50 are still working in the zone. It's called Zone Startup. And so I keep on telling now all entrepreneurs that if you, what is the similarity between Rashesh Shah, Dhirubhai Ambani, Ratan Tata, and Narayan Murthy? It is that all of them listed on BSE. That's how they became big. So if you want to become big, list on BSE. And today, we will get you 100,000 rupees, 1 lakh rupees if you want, I'll get you. If you want 1 lakh crore, I will get you. So we will basically give the fire to the Indian entrepreneur's dream, that money is not a constraint today. People are willing to fund as far as you want to be disciplined. When you want to come on BSE SME or BSE incubator or BSE main board, you have to be disciplined, but otherwise, we will ensure you get adequate funding if you have a good business model, business is working, and you are able to convince the investors. The last part is that the startups, we have a lot of stories. Many times the newspapers and magazines and televisions are full of stories about $1 billion and $17 billion and $100 billion of valuations happening. But if you ask most entrepreneurs, they don't get little funding. The stories of the successful people doesn't tell you the unsuccessful attempts which people have made, including myself. I used to be an entrepreneur. And so I feel this acutely, the need for going out, telling your stories, and getting the funds. And so most entrepreneurs, despite all popular perceptions, do not get funding from wise people sitting with money in private equity, venture capital, angel, and so on and so forth. For that, we have now announced a new segment on BSE called BSE Startup. On July 9th, which is the 143rd Foundation Day of BSE, we are going to launch a new BSE Startup segment, which will allow youngsters, high-tech companies to come raise funds from the investors, and hopefully many of them will do well. So on this great occasion of SME Day, I think it's apt that we celebrate the small businesses who create jobs, run the economy, and also ensure that the economy goes forward. I have no doubt in my mind that some of these SMEs will grow up to become Infosys and Wipro and Facebook and Google and so on and so forth. So thank you very much for coming today, and hope we will have great discussion today.
I'd now like to call on stage Shri Rashesh Shah to give his address, please.
Good morning, friends, and good morning, my friend Ashish Kumar Chauhan. Ashish, that was a very energizing start of this International SME Day. So I want to congratulate you, us, all of us on this great event, on this great day. I think it's now a cliche all over the world to say that SMEs are the heart of the economies. In any country of the world, anywhere, everybody has now underscored, everybody's spoken about this, that SMEs are the ones who create jobs, they are the ones who create a large part of the economic activity, but also, it's also the part of this segment that is the most, hard to understand, because in India also we call SME, MSME. Even when I talk with a lot of people in the government, there are various concepts of SME that people have. Even when we look at banks, usually banks have a retail group and a wholesale or a corporate group. And in some banks, SME is in the retail group, some banks SME is in the corporate group. So very rarely do we know what exactly is SME, and I think we have quite a few of out here. Educate all of us in terms of what is this entire SME opportunity all about. But I think it goes without saying that every large company, everybody is an SME at heart, because I think the heart of SME is about aspiration, about scaling up, about opportunity. In fact, in Edelweiss, we have a campaign which talks about unlimited. And this whole campaign came about for SME companies, where we found that, and usually it's, when a company becomes large and they come to list on the BSE, it is the limited company, right? We all say this is a limited company, public limited company, private limited company. So our concept has been that large companies are actually also called, the limited companies. But SMEs are unlimited companies. The amount of opportunities they have are unlimited. The aspirations they have are unlimited. And I think however way we try to define SMEs, for me it is always about huge amount of growth, huge amount of aspiration, huge amount of ambition. Obviously, huge amount of struggle and challenges also, because I think it's not easy to be an SME. It's not easy at any stage of a company's evolution. I think there are challenges, there are hurdles, but there are also opportunities. And fortunately, we are in this exciting country called India, but also at a very exciting phase in this country called India. India is now truly coming of age. India is getting scale, and in fact, we believe that this is India's golden age of compounding. Very few of us realize that India became a $1 trillion country as a GDP. We became $1 trillion in 2007. But we became, which means after 60 years of independence, India's GDP became $1 trillion. We became $2 trillion in 2014, which means in the next 7 years, we added $1 trillion to what we added for the first 60 years. We will add our third trillion to our GDP in 5 years. We'll add the fourth trillion in about 3.5 years. And we'll add the fifth trillion when India becomes a $5 trillion GDP by 2025. That fifth trillion will happen in only 2 years. So first 1 trillion was 60 years, but the fifth 1 trillion will be 2 years. And after that, India will be adding $1 trillion every 18 months. So this is truly the golden age of India, and I think India still has a lot of growth for the next 20, 25 years until India becomes a 10 trillion, $15 trillion country, which is by 2035, 2040. We have a huge amount of growth opportunity. And these growth opportunities for all of us is there to capture with the hands, to go and grasp. And I think SMEs, and I meet quite a few companies. I have actually met a lot of companies in my career who were all what we call SMEs. In fact, on a personal note, when I started my career in ICICI in 1989, about 2 years after that, in 1991, I was the account officer for a small company. At that time was a small, about 40 people organization, which you must have heard of that company. It's called Infosys. So in 1991 in ICICI, I was very fortunate to be an account officer for handling Infosys, where we gave them about 30 lakh rupees at that time, which even in those days also 30 lakhs for ICICI was a small amount of money, and I did the appraisal for that. And having seen Infosys over almost about 26, 27 years after that, including the IPO and the post-IPO and all, and that same 40 people company has now become a $35 billion market cap company. So every company was an SME, is always an SME at heart, because if we define SME in terms of growth opportunities, in terms of aspirations, in terms of ambition, I think we all in that category. We all aspire to continue to be in that category as we go along. Ashish spoke about a very important part. I think there are 3 or 4 things that MSMEs struggle with the most. And one is capital, access to capital. And I must compliment the Bombay Stock Exchange for this entire getting the SME exchange, 250 companies listed, 2,500 crores having already been raised. And this is the tip of the iceberg. But again, if I go back to my career days, in about 27 years ago, India attempted this for the first time with something called the OTCEI. There was an OTC Exchange of India that was started, which was also started to fund startups and SMEs in India, which obviously did not take off. So obviously it's not easy to even create an exchange for startups and SMEs and all, and what you all have achieved is very complimentary, very, very really worthy of appreciation. And I think, we should continue to make efforts to scale this up, because this will, provide a very valuable capital to the SME segment. And as I said, one of the challenges SMEs face is always capital. And I think equity capital has got easier. We had private equity and all, but with an SME exchange and all, this should get easier and easier. But obviously the market does exist to give capital to companies which are worthy of capital. So there is competition, there is the need to go out and justify why investors should give you capital, and quite a few of you have done a fabulous job at that. But along with equity capital, you also need credit. You also need the loan part of it. And that also in India has been a struggle. In fact, in the last few years, it has got worse because of after GST and MSME and the banking crisis that is going on. Unfortunately, a large part of the bank NPAs have been created by the large companies. I was told that the large borrower category accounts for more than 80-85% of the NPAs in the banking segment. But because of that, a lot of the curtailment of credit, the cost has come onto the SMEs. Increasingly, we find all the time that SMEs are facing the burden of this, the banks trying to curtail credit because of their own NPA issues. And it's been in the last 8-10 years that really credit to SMEs has become an opportunity, but at the same time, the supply side constraint from the banking industry and all have also got really significant. And I think here is where NBFCs and other providers, and I do think that private funds and AIFs and other categories, including the bond markets also eventually, will fund the credit needs of SMEs also. For us in Edelweiss, SME credit is the fastest growing part of all our credit segment which are there. We started this about 5 years ago. We started it very tentatively. Initially, we wanted to do only collateral-based credit to SMEs because we were also worried whether we have the underwriting capability, we have the skill set or not. But now actually the business loan category, which is the non-collateralized loans to SMEs, is the fastest growing segment for us also, and we are creating newer and newer products for that category because every SME segment, so we have a 5 lakh product and a 10 lakh product and a 20 lakh product and a 40 lakh product for SMEs as a loan category. And the amount of growth we are seeing, we are now about 100 branches on SME that we have. So for the first 4 years after we started, we had about 40 odd branches. Now we have gone to 100 branches, and our aspiration is that in the next 5 years to try and reach between 300 to 400 SME branches in India. So there's a huge amount of opportunity that actually exists out there. And with the advent of Aadhaar and technology and with the credit bureau and all, it's got easier and easier to assess. Because what we saw in India over the years is for the last many years, a large part of a credit went to the large borrowers. So if you are a large company, large corporate, it became easy to get credit. And there were many credit-worthy SMEs, a lot of credit-worthy entrepreneurs who were not getting credit because either the banks or the NBFC didn't have the underwriting skill set or the information was not there. But now with GST and all that, more and more information will be available and more credit-worthy borrowers, truly outstanding companies which have huge amount of growth aspiration will get the credit because your only constraint to growth should be your own aspiration, your own execution capability. It should not be the resources. It should not be whether you can get capital because capital has to be available. That is why the economy, all the financial services intermediaries, whether it's stock exchanges, NBFCs, funds, all of them exist only to channelize capital from the providers of capital to the right users of capital. And all of us, whether we call ourselves NBFCs or stockbrokers or asset managers or insurance companies or stock exchanges, our job is to channelize capital, equity capital, debt capital from the providers to the users. And I think India has come a long way in that. And with exchanges also innovating in this particular aspect, we should see that more and more opportunities for SMEs to access credit will open up, all kinds of credit. And the third issue that SMEs face usually is about scaling up. And even that is a large part of challenge in India because for the first time we're seeing opportunities in India, but your own ability to scale up, your own ability to reinvent yourself all the time is another big challenge. And we in Edelweiss are doing a lot of activities. Even in my role as the FICCI president, we are doing a lot of activities in helping scale up. Because in India has a very great startup culture that has evolved over the years. We have a lot of large corporates who over the years have done a great job. But SMEs, as they scale up, have to access capital every few years, reinvent the business model every few years, change the org structure every few years. And that kind of scale up iteration that goes on again and again is also another big challenge. And in India, since we are getting scale for the first time as a country, I think scaling up is also another big challenge that SMEs face. But a lot of companies have overcome the challenge, and by us collaborating, sharing, our experiences, we should be able to also, cross-pollinate ideas and share the best practices in that. And the last thing that SMEs always want, which they find it hard to get, which I've seen over the years, over and above capital and scale-up capability and all of that, is about respect. My own father was a very small-time entrepreneur, and I used to see that for a small overdraft limit in State Bank of India, he would go and stand outside the office of the branch manager for many hours, because historically, we used to treat the large companies with a lot of respect. That has been India's culture over the years, that large company, if you are large and all, you get the most amount of respect. Over the last few years, as entrepreneurship and all has taken up, startups have also got a lot of excitement and respect. We see newspaper articles, but we don't see articles about SMEs. We don't talk about SMEs. We talk about startups, we talk about large companies. You open any newspaper and you will see these two categories of stories. But we don't have as many stories about SMEs who are scaling up, who are struggling with some issues, about stories of a company which went from 1 crore turnover to 5 crore turnover to 20 crore turnover. By the time you hit 100 crores and 1,000 crores, then you start getting, more and more. So even the overall, the bias from the media industry also is something we have to overcome. But overall, I think SMEs are the blind spot for all of us. And that blind spot also is because the one thing SMEs don't get is the respect. And I think increasingly our effort, even in Edelweiss and all, you see our advertising campaign and all that, is वो जो इज्जत होनी चाहिए कि SMEs also, whether you're a 3 crore company or a 30 lakh company or a 5 crore company, and you're going through everyday struggle of getting capital, getting customers, scaling up your business, is where the most amount of, and I have actually interacted with quite a few SME customers, and this thing comes about again and again कि कुछ respect होनी चाहिए, इज्जत होनी चाहिए. So as we solve other problems of providing opportunities, providing scale-up support, providing capital, we should also ensure that we provide the respect that it deserves, because I think being an SME entrepreneur, being an SME company is obviously very energizing, but also comes with a lot of challenges, and a lot of you have overcome the challenges, continue to overcome those challenges, and we should applaud those, we should respect those, we should compliment those. So I think that is the other area where we need to do a lot more effort, and I think it goes without saying that India's future is interlinked with the future of SMEs in India. All of our future is interlinked with the future of SMEs in India. So on that very happy note, I once again want to thank all of you, want to thank the Bombay Stock Exchange, want to compliment the Bombay Stock Exchange for all the initiatives that have been taken. And on this great day, which we call the International SME Day, I'm happy we are all gathered here, and thank you for this opportunity. Bye.
I would now request Shri Ashish Kumar to felicitate Shri Rashesh Shah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Now we'll have a special message being played out from Shri Sudhir Mungatiwar, Honorable Cabinet Minister of Finance and Planning, Forest Departments, Government of Maharashtra.
आज यूनाइटेड नेशन एमएसएमई डे है, दिवस है. ये दिवस हम इसलिए मनाते हैं कि विश्व तरक्की तो करेगा, मगर विश्व के तरक्की के साथ विषमता मुक्ति की दिशा में ये तरक्की होनी चाहिए. ऐसा ना हो कि कोई एक व्यक्ति इतना अमीर हो गया और दूसरा व्यक्ति रोज रोटी के लिए 24 घंटा खर्च करता है. तो ऐसी विषमता ये विश्व के प्रगति में बाधादायक होती है. एमएसएमई के माध्यम से हम छोटे छोटे व्यक्तियों को उनके शक्ति के आधार पर, उनके सोच के आधार पर छोटे उद्योग निर्माण करने में प्रेरित भी करते हैं, मदद भी करते हैं, वो बड़ा रोजगार देते हैं. जब मैं देश के जीडीपी की बात सोचता हूँ तो देश के जीडीपी में बड़े उद्योगों का तो योगदान है, मगर बहुत बड़ी मात्रा में जो एसएमई है उनका रोजगार देने में योगदान बढ़ा रहा है और जीडीपी में उनका हिस्सा भी बहुत बढ़ा रहा है. आज जब बॉम्बे स्टॉक एक्सचेंज की हम बात करते हैं, बीएसई में 350 से ज़्यादा लोग लिस्टेड हुए हैं. अब आवश्यकता है कि हम विषमता मुक्ति की ओर अगर हमें जाना है तो हम ऐसे छोटे छोटे उद्योगों के माध्यम से रोजगार भी दे और इस रोजगार के माध्यम से विषमता मुक्ति की सफर भी करे। मेरी ओर से इस यूएन एमएसएमई दिवस के अवसर पर आप सभी को शुभकामनाएं और मैं ये विश्वास देता हूं कि महाराष्ट्र के अर्थमंत्री के नाते इस विषमता मुक्ति के लड़ाई में मैं एमएसएमई के साथ खड़ा रहूंगा। पूरी शक्ति के साथ हम ऐसी व्यवस्था का निर्माण करेंगे जिसमें हर व्यक्ति एक छोटा उद्योजक बन सके और इस व्यवस्था का हिस्सा बन सके। मेरी ओर से इस दिवस के अवसर पर बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं और शुभकामनाओं के साथ संकल्प का दिवस और ये चिंतन का दिवस। चलो हम ऐसा चिंतन करें कि हमारा देश महामानव डॉक्टर बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर जी, महात्मा गांधी जी, पंडित दीनदयाल उपाध्याय जी के विचारों पे आगे चलते हुए सबके हाथों को काम, सबको रोजगार, एक ऐसा सुजलाम सुफलाम देश हम बनाएंगे, भय मुक्त भारत का सपना साकार करेंगे, एक भूख मुक्त भारत का सपना साकार करेंगे। मेरी ओर से बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं।
And now a message from our chief guest, Shri Suresh Prabhu, Honorable Minister of Commerce and Industry and Civil Aviation, Government of India.
Let me congratulate the organizers for organizing this MSME program. MSMEs are the backbone of Indian economy. They provide the largest number of employment, also produce large number of output, help export, but most importantly, enable development of society in an inclusive manner. Because if only large industries develop, it does not help the small industries at all, or the people don't earn as much as they should be earning. Small industries also provide a lifeline support to large industries, because without MSMEs providing components and other allied services, they will not be able to survive. So this is a very important activity. Therefore, I wish to congratulate you. All the best to you.